Good morning, Richard Fulmer here, or good evening, or good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. And welcome to another Richard's Rock Rambles, the albums that are 50 years old in 2022. And today we're going to have a look at an artist who's kind of got a dual career. There's the acoustic side of him, and then there's the electric side, which can get quite grungy and heavy. Talking about Neil Young, and in particular the album Harvest, which would become an iconic album and the one which would really put him on the next level and which would kind of cement his career. It's the album that most people, even with a passing knowledge of Neil Young, are aware of. It's a great sort of country folk album, some nice acoustic guitar, great lyrics. He's an amazing songwriter, probably one of the best songwriters ever, along with people like Dylan. And I have to say, in the beginning, I wasn't much of a Neil Young fan. I think it was probably the vocals that I couldn't relate to. It took me a while to get into them, but I'm a huge fan now. In particular, more the heavier stuff. When grunge came around, he sort of had a second breath of life, really, and he released some amazing albums in the early '90s, as well as some really early ones. His second album, Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere, is one of my favorites. That's got some raucous guitar in it from his with his group Crazy Horse. That's the stuff I really enjoy. But Harvest, nonetheless, as far as the acoustic albums go, I should say, is an iconic album for a reason. And there's really not a bad track on it, and it's one that I can listen to today and get as much enjoyment out of it as I did back in the day. So let's have a look at this album. It was recorded in between January and September 1971, and it was released on February the 1st in 1972. It was on the Reprise label, produced by Neil Young and Jack Nitschke, who I think went on to produce quite a few albums with Neil Young, and it would be his fourth solo album. So yeah, he's like I said, he's switched between acoustic and electric on his albums. Sometimes he mixes the two together, but this one was primarily an acoustic guitar album. So in the band, you had obviously Neil Young on lead and acoustic guitar, harmonica, piano, and vocals. John Harris, piano on Harvest. James Taylor on banjo and backing vocals. All these guys knew each other back in the day. They'll probably all live down the road from each other, really. Linda Ronstadt, backing vocals. So some pretty big names early on in their careers here. David Crosby, Stephen Stills, and Graham Nash, all on backing vocals. So that's obviously his buddies from Crosby, Stills, and Nash, who he hung out with for Deja Vu. And of course, he did tours with them as well. Tim Drummond on bass. Kenny Buttrey on drums. And then on two tracks, there was also the London Symphony Orchestra on Man Needs a Maid and There's a World, which really filled out the track as well and gave it an extra dimension. So the album went number one in the US and the UK and a bunch of other countries as well. And it went 4 times platinum in the US, which I probably think it's more than that now. It's been out for such a long time, since '72, but it's gone gold in countries, platinum, as I said, 4 times platinum in the US. So yeah, it's become an iconic album. I remember when I was still working in retail, it was, if you didn't have Harvest in your collection, then there was something wrong. You know, it's an album that just keeps selling. It's accessible. It's not, some of his albums can be quite polarizing. They're either too heavy or they're too out there, because Neil could get quite strange at times. I mean, you only have to think of albums like Greendale, and what else is there? There was an album called Trans, which was almost like an electronic album. But anyway, I digress. Those are different albums. Today we're chatting about Harvest. So this is the iconic cover of the album, Harvest. I used to have the vinyl. I don't know what happened to it. Probably got lost somewhere along the way, or maybe I sold it when CDs came around. That's something I really shouldn't have done. You know, so many great vinyls that I have are sold, and now I'm trying to struggle to find them again. That's the back shot there. I don't know if you can see with all this glare in the kind of barn set up there. The guys, that's Neil Young in his trademark lumberjack shirt, which I think he still wears to this day. Became sort of a trademark for him. I just want to see if there's anything else I can show you inside here. I don't have a deluxe or a fancy edition of this album. This is a bog standard sort of standard CD version. So there's the songs. That's Neil there in a lens, famous shot. So those are just the song titles. And let's see, if I open this up, you just basically get all the lyrics. There we go. So that's pretty much it as far as what I can show you. I think there is a deluxe version that's out, well, I'm sure there must be. And he's released box sets and what have you with B-sides from this album and previously unreleased tracks. So there is some extra stuff out there that didn't appear on the original album. So the tracks on here, like I said, it's no filler. This is all classy stuff. Out on the weekend, with some really interesting lyrics, great acoustic work from Neil and the rest of the guys. The title track, Harvest, beautiful track. A Man Needs a Maid, which today would probably pick up a bit of flack, probably be a bit too un-PC in today's woke world, but yeah, still an interesting song, one of my favorites on the album. Heart of Gold, another beautiful track. What I like about this album as well is the amount of melody and the hooks in it, you know, that stick in your head. When you hear the song and then 5 minutes later you're humming it to yourself, that's a winner. So that was Heart of Gold. Are You Ready for the Country? Old Man. That was probably the... Old Man is probably the biggest hit off this album. I think that did really well for him. It's kind of a sad, somber song, but it actually resonates if you listen to the lyrics. You can relate to it. That's what I like about this album as well. It's not stuff that's totally out there. Like I said, some of his albums are. There's a World is the next track. Alabama, which got under the skin of a certain band called Lynyrd Skynyrd later on, but that's a story for another day. The Needle and the Damage Done. Now that song pertains to guys who were in his band previously, who had issues with heroin. Neil himself also dabbled with drugs, but thankfully he never got into such a degree that it affected his health or ended his life or anything like that. But he did have some guys who hung around with him that got into it in a bad way, and yeah, they didn't come back for that. So that's pretty much what that song's all about. And then the final track is Words Between the Lines of Age. Really great album. Yeah, it's iconic. If you don't have this in your collection, you're missing out. It's for Neil Young, it's one of the must-haves. Like I said, for me, everybody knows This Is Nowhere, the second album. That's a great one. Ragged Glory, much later on. Harvest Moon, which was, I think, in the 90s. It was kind of the follow-on from this, although not really. What else is there? Gosh, this guy's so prolific. I mean, Neil Young must have done now easily 40 albums plus, and every year almost he releases another one. He finds tapes that he hasn't released yet, and he's like Bob Dylan. He just keeps going and going, and as far as I'm aware, he's still touring, and he has to play tracks from this when he plays live. I mean, Old Man, Alabama, Heart of Gold, you know, they staples. So there we go, guys. Just short and sweet. Excuse me. Neil Young's Harvest. And yeah, look after yourselves. Have a great week. And yeah, we'll chat soon. We're going to try something else next time. We've had a look at all the albums that have turned 50 in 2022. And yeah, we'll see what comes up next time. And I'll catch you then. Have a great one. Cheers.